6:18. Donald Trump's violent attacks on the UK weren't even the most striking thing he's been saying today. That came with his claim that China was delighted with him trying to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. He was doing it for them, he said. Will give me a big fat hug when I get there in a few weeks. Is that really how it feels in China? Let's talk now to Victor Gao, the international affairs specialist based in Beijing. Victor, thank you very much indeed for joining us tonight. First of all, what's the attitude generally in Beijing to the war going on in Iran?
Thank you very much. From the Chinese perspective, this war launched by the United States and Israel against Iran is a war of aggression, and it should be stopped right away because it's in violation of international law, of the Charter of the United Nations, you name it. And the longer this war continues, it will really trigger a very lethal, toxic combination of three crises: energy crisis, economic crisis, and financial crisis. So China started to call for an end to the war from the very beginning on February the 28th. Now, on the other hand, China also deals with President Trump as the president of the United States, as the commander-in-chief of the military forces of the United States. And in that sense, we respect him as the president or as the presidency of the United States. And we are really looking forward to welcoming him on this very important state visit to China. Now, on the other hand, I don't think people need to read very seriously what President Trump is talking about China, because you really need to get to the real version of the story. Yeah. That is from the Chinese perspective.
I don't quite close my eyes and see easily the image of giving President Trump a big fat hug. Do you?
Well, in Chinese protocol and etiquette, we normally avoid hugging each other, and we deal with each other with a dignified handshake. So I hope that will be what President Trump will get when he visits China.
It's been very interesting. Trump was talking about the Strait of Hormuz particularly and reopening it. But we all noticed yesterday that one of the big tankers that went perfectly freely through the Strait of Hormuz was a Chinese tanker carrying ethanol. From your perspective, does China have real problems with getting through the Strait of Hormuz, or do you have an agreement which allows you to carry on passing through that waterway?
First of all, allow me to emphasize that the Strait of Hormuz was open for free navigation on and before February the 28th. And we know what caused the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, and China is completely opposed to the root cause leading towards the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. Secondly, China has military resources and naval ships in that vicissitude, and China is committed to defending its right of free navigation through the Strait of Hormuz, as well as refusing to recognize the legitimacy of the U.S.-imposed naval blockade in that neighborhood. Therefore, I think Chinese ships enjoy the right to go by the Strait of Hormuz, as well as in the water close to the Strait of Hormuz, because China is not only doing the right thing, China is also backing it up with real military forces and naval ships in that neighborhood. China does not recognize the legitimacy of the U.S. naval blockade.
Sorry to jump in, but that is absolutely fascinating. Is there therefore a danger of China and America finding themselves firing at each other, finding themselves in a state of war?
Well, I hope not. I hope the U.S. side, including their military, will know the full consequence of firing at a Chinese military object or disrupting the free navigation of the Chinese naval ships as well as commercial ships. Because if there is only one country in this world that the United States cannot afford to dismiss or completely disregard, it is China, based on its overall strength, its commitment to defending its legitimate interests, as well as its very open eagerness to deal with the United States on completely equal basis with each other. So I hope the American side will not second-guess China's commitment and misread China's real intention of standing very firmly to defend its legitimacy and all the rights as derived from international law, as well as under the United Nations Charter.
One of the possibilities that's being talked about is the United States going on to seize some of the islands around the Strait of Hormuz, and indeed even perhaps part of the coastal littoral of Iran there. Would there, if that happened, would there be a read across to the situation regarding Taiwan?
Well, first of all, I think philosophically speaking, my personal view is that President Trump and his government are damned if they want to escalate the situation, and they will be damned if they do not escalate the situation. And they are completely responsible for this dilemma they find themselves in, aided and abetted by Israel and Prime Minister Netanyahu, of course, because the best way to end the closure of the Strait of Hormuz is to end the war immediately. And if the United States further escalates, it will really trigger the toxic combination of three crises combined together: the energy crisis, which is already happening, the economic crisis, which is happening, but the data thereof probably is trailing behind, and then the very lethal explosion of this financial crisis.
Victor Gao, I've lost you there, but can I just say thank you very, very much for a fascinating conversation. Very good of you to join LBC tonight.